morning, good afternoon.
A little closer.
Is that better? Yeah, I just... Closer. Okay, there's two things I wanted to talk about. I only have 10 minutes. Number one is single issue voting. And the second thing is the United States voting system. So I hope I can get through it all. I came to the United States in 1978, in October of 1978. In October of 1978, I did three things. I turned 27. I stood on the stage and was awarded my PhD from the University of New South Wales. And the third thing I did was I was defeated at a state election. So I ran for state parliament in Australia in 1978. So not only have I been interested in politics, I've actually been defeated in an election. So 2 weeks after I was defeated, I flew to Philadelphia as a postdoc at the University of Pennsylvania, where I stayed for 18 years. So I am trained as a scientist. Why I even tell you that story is because the way Australia votes is very different from the way the United States votes. In the United States, everything is weighted towards capitalism. And capitalists absolutely love first past the post voting because you can weigh the votes with money, by television, by all sorts of things. My two older children, their father came from Hazleton, and I can remember the 1980 elections. And both of his grandfathers died from black lung disease. They were miners, descended from immigrants from Europe. Now, if you know anything about the miners in Hazleton and the coal country, they were very good at making changes and getting things working for them. Now, this family, with the two grandparents, died from black lung disease. They were total Reaganites because they were watching television and everyone, do you remember Morning in America? Well, that was in the 1984, but before that, though, I mean, these good Catholics, good labor union people were totally Republican. And that really shocked me. But I understood what's happened. And since then, since 1980, things have only gotten worse, with Citizens United in 2010. So really my point is, though, that if rich people want you to vote in a particular way, they will make you vote that way. And this is where we come in, because we have to understand what's going on. We have to be educated in what the issues are. We have to be able to resist the amount of money that's going. I can see this seems to be happening in Maine at the moment, with a Graham Plattner, who has a Nazi tattoo, has been endorsed by all kinds of important Democrats for Senate. And this is a rich boy who went to all kinds of private schools, who has a Nazi tattoo. And he speaks beautifully. He tells everyone what they want to hear. And it's very frightening because Graham Plattner has every possibility of turning into a Senator Fetterman. And of course, in Arizona, they had Kirsten Sinema, who was the same thing. What I'm really saying is it's very, very important to understand what the issues are and tell everyone you know. I mean, I know you're all activists and you're not going to vote for Jill Stein or a third party where you're going to lose your vote, right? Of course not. But you have to also tell other people around you how to vote. And let's get on to Jill Stein. And also, President Clinton was elected in 1992 because there was a third-party candidate. And that is why George Bush Sr. didn't get re-elected. A third party came and it siphoned off the votes. Okay, so very simply, when you have a first-past-the-post election, and you have three candidates, You have one that you like, and then you have two maybe you have two you like and one you don't like. The person you don't like will be elected because there's only one of that, but there are two of them. So if you have two progressives and one right wing, the right wing candidate is going to win because the progressive vote will be split. And that, of course, happens when you have a first past the post system. Now, when I ran for Parliament in Australia, we had preferential voting. And so what happened was there was the Labor Party, and then there was the Liberal Party, which was conservative, and there was a new party, a third party, called the Australian Democrats. And I was an Australian Democrat, and I don't even remember why, because I was always pro-Labor. But when people voted for me, they didn't lose their votes because they have preferential voting. And what preferential voting means is when you vote, you have a ballot and you say, I want that person number one, that person number two, that person number three. And when you're counting the votes, and it was always paper vote, and it still is in Australia. What happened was the number two votes were counted, and they were put in whatever it was. So when people voted for me, they didn't lose their vote for a Labor candidate. It was added to the Labor candidate. Well, the Liberal candidate won anyway because it was a blue ribbon seat. So I'm not explaining it very well.
Why do you think Plattner is another Fetterman? Why do you think that?
Okay, I will talk to you later about that. I'm not going to talk to you, but I think that's a very good question. I'm very worried about anyone coming along and saying they're God's answer to whatever. The other thing I wanted to talk about was single issue voting. Single issue voting. Now, yesterday we heard that Catholic charities lost their funding because of the Pope, the coolest Pope ever. I mean, well, incredible. And I'm thinking to myself, what did they expect? I mean, Catholic churches. I used to go to a Nigerian Igbo church on 69th Street, St. Cyprian's, because it was just a really cool Catholic church. And in 2016, they all voted for Trump because Trump was against abortion. And in fact, outside the church, there's a little memorial to all the aborted babies. So I've only been back there a couple of times since. But that's what happened. It was a single issue vote. So Trump carried the Catholic vote because of abortion. They didn't think of what else was going to happen. Like
killing a lot of
people, killing people starving to death, losing health care, more wars, all kinds of things. And that actually has been a problem with progressives too. I mean, a lot of people I have spoken to, and I in Amnesty International, in Quaker circles, who told me they couldn't vote for Kamala because she was anti-Palestine. Well, I can tell you that is a single issue vote, and it was absolute nonsense. Every single Congress, every single president since 1948, since Harry Truman, has poured money on Israel. And this idea that somehow Kamala was responsible, I mean, my attitude is always, okay, there's a lot of things wrong with every candidate, but what you do is you vote for the one that's more likely to achieve help and will help people who need help more than all of us. So, but that was my issue there, and I'm very upset that anyone voted for Jill Stein. I understand. I'm not sure if that's what ruined. If that's what gave Pennsylvania to. I'm not sure if that's what gave Pennsylvania to Trump. I'm not sure. But what I'm really saying is, okay, I worked as a medical writer, and my field of expertise was diabetes. And diabetes is a very complicated disease. And I became interested in that because my second child was 10 pounds. And my parents were physicians, and they told me, my God, you're going to get diabetes unless you do something about it. So I became very interested in preventing myself from getting diabetes, and I haven't gotten it. But meanwhile, I became an expert on diabetes, and I've done all kinds of stuff with diabetes. There are people who are physicians, nurses, who are diabetes educators. And it's an enormous process to become a diabetes educator so that you can teach people who have diabetes what to do when they need injections, how they measure their blood sugar, what they eat, how they exercise, how they live. I have known people who've had their legs amputated because they didn't want to learn. They didn't have the time, they didn't have the energy to learn how to live with diabetes. Well, voting is the same as diabetes. You need a voting educator. It's not a minor thing. Women died to get the vote. And to not take it seriously, not to look through all the candidates, including the local candidates, not just the national candidates, the state candidates, the local candidates, federal candidates. It is imperative for all of us to absolutely pay attention and to do what we can to change the voting system from first past the post to preferential voting. Yeah.
Ranked choice, is that what it's?
Ranked choice. That is. There are different ways, but it's all ranked choice, preferential voting, all sorts of things. So I hope I've upset you in the right way. And thank you. You're all wonderful people, and I'm very